Welcome to the SHT podcast. This podcast is created by superhumans, for superhumans, and anyone else who wants to look, feel, and perform like a freaking badass. Your holistic health journey starts here. Rediscover how we...
Yeah!
Paul, sit your ass down.
That's it.
Yeah. Your hands went from absolutely freezing to really sweaty.
This is like powering up.
Yeah.
All right, what's going on with you today?
Nothing. I got done with work. I ran some errands. I need to buy Ryan I talk about Ryan a lot. A white button-down shirt.
You should. He's a great guy.
I love him.
I love Ryan.
Hi, babe.
You love him?
I do.
Oh. This is timeless.
Yeah, no, I know.
Okay, you're on camera right now.
Hello.
And audio. You weren't at the workout today. What's up?
No, I had to be at Spring Valley High School at like 6:45.
Okay.
So I just got in the shower so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's pretty early.
Yeah.
It was a fun one. You're going to have a good time today.
I'm so nervous and yet so excited.
Yeah. Max effort wall balls.
I know. Wall balls are my jam, but I don't want to hype myself up.
Well, the strategy me and Colby had was and 10 more, and 10 more.
Yes.
And 10 more. So you go, and then you hit whatever it is, and then, okay, I can do 10 more. Okay, then I can do 10 more.
That's great. That's really good advice. Thank you.
And then have someone sitting there yelling at you, because we're doing, we did partners. So.
Yeah. Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Okay, hopefully that'll be what it is at the end.
I'm excited to be here with you.
I know, I'm excited too. What's going on with you? Anything?
I don't know. I'm excited to be here because it's just we've already gotten some good feedback on it.
I know.
You heard the voicemail from the guy that called in, just said he found it out of nowhere, and that's what we want. And
that is so
it's
cool.
Exciting.
I've
exciting.
Texted it out to a few people. I had a couple subscribers when I went out to Dixie State and did the little sleepover. So that was really cool. Yeah.
Cool.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've seen some downloads, 5.
Yeah.
Which is great.
But yeah, we'll take it. We'll take it.
Yeah. That made me think of something.
What?
I can't remember. I felt like I was on a good little thought process about that.
The voicemail, the subscribers, the downloads.
No,
I texted it out to people.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, that's what it was.
Hey.
So, and I want to do a podcast on how to subscribe to a podcast. But I guess I'm just going to do a video on how to subscribe to a podcast because a lot of people I've mentioned it to, and they're like, "What's a podcast?" I'm like, "You don't know what a podcast is?"
Oh gosh, they're huge. Yeah. Maybe it's just
There's some people some people are tapped into it. I did a presentation at Straight Flesh CrossFit, and
cool.
I mentioned I was so excited, and I was like, anybody listen to the podcast? And half the people raised their hand.
That's awesome.
Half of them probably didn't know what it was, so we will. But yes,
Dang, okay.
So excited to be here today again because this is such good stuff.
What do you want to talk about today? What are we doing?
You know what we're talking about today.
I know what we are. What
was the last thing we talked about?
Foods to avoid.
Mm-hmm.
So today we want
So the next flow would be going into what we consider our definition of real food. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. So what do you think in your mind we're supposed to eat?
I know what we're supposed to eat because we experience it.
Tell us.
We do it. We do it and we feel it. All right. So, anyone that's been to our talks around the basics of real food has gone through our typical spiel on that whole process and how we come to our definition of real food. But I had an idea the other day. I was thinking about. I hope I can pull it together right now because it's not rehearsed. So. So I was thinking, I usually say in our talks, I was like, remember when I say, look, if I eat something that resembles what my body is,
yes.
I give my body everything to make my body.
Yes.
So if I eat something that looks like meat and me, I give me what I need to make me.
Yep.
And that sounds like it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because it's like a nutrient for nutrient thing. But then, are there any examples of things that kind of look like us that don't eat us or don't eat meat?
No.
Of course, no. Think about it.
No,
are there meat things that don't have meat? Don't eat meat. Meat things that don't eat meat.
Things that don't eat meat. Yes.
Okay. Such as?
Cows.
Okay, there we go. That's a good example. All right. So I usually say in my talks, if I eat something that resembles me, I give me everything to make me. And then I was like, well, let me play devil's advocate. I was like, well, you know what? That doesn't always apply.
That's true.
So if you look at a cow, a cow does not eat meat.
No.
But a cow is meat. A cow kind of resembles what we are.
Yes.
And pigs may be a little bit more omnivorish, but still they don't eat exactly what we say that we're supposed to eat, and yet they're kind of meat based.
Yeah, same things with chickens.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Okay.
Well, and chickens are a little bit omnivorish, because they eat bugs and grubs, and they'll even eat little rats and stuff like that. But So then if you think about what is the closest relative to human beings in the primate, area. So, we have like gorillas and orangutans and things like that. I think chimpanzees are the things that are closest to us.
Yeah.
So if we look at what they eat and try to figure out, would that be something that we could like correlate to what we're supposed to eat? Maybe, I don't know. I was just going through this thought experiment. And then if you research what chimpanzees eat, they eat a lot of fruit, and then they do eat meat periodically throughout the year. I think it makes up about 3 to 10% of their total calories. But it's funny because when they eat meat, they do a lot of chewing because they don't cook the way that we do. Yeah. They don't have access to fire the way that we do. So
interesting.
So what's different about all those animals, do you think? What's different about pigs, cows, chimpanzees, and human beings? What if we're all made of what looks like the same thing? What's different?
But I feel like our digestive system might be a little different.
Right.
Right? Yeah. So how do we digest?
Well, do you know the difference between those?
No.
Okay, so this is really interesting. Yeah. So all right. So we have similar parts, but the way that those parts are made up is going to be a little bit different.
Okay.
So our stomachs are all about the same size compared to the rest of our bodies, right? The small intestines, humans have a huge surface area, like 2 or 3 times more than other primates, okay? Large intestine, primates are going to have a much large intestine than human beings.
Really?
Right? So, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So the reason for that is that we do a lot of absorption of nutrients and calories because we have a smaller digestive system, and that's why we have a larger small intestine. Okay. And primates are going to do a lot more digestion and fermentation of nutrient deplete plant matter, which they can convert into other nutrients, and that's what they do in their large intestine. So we have a smaller large intestine. We don't have this capacity. It's called hindgut fermentation in primates. They can eat, like that's why you'll see gorillas and most primates eat a lot of plant matter because they can take, and they're eating all day long, by the way. They're eating all day long and chewing it all day long. They have to super masticate stuff. And then they are fermenting that plant matter into short chain fatty acids and some other nutrients. So it's basically like they're turning that into something else that then the body can use and convert into the structure and form and function, that we see as the animal.
Crazy.
So does that kind of make sense?
Yes.
So the big difference is we have a huge small intestine compared to them. They have a huge large intestine because of the fermentation process.
Oh my gosh.
Right? Now, what's really interesting about that is, so I can't remember the guys' names, but there's a couple of papers from some scientists out in Japan, and this was years ago, and I remember coming across this from Lauren Cordain in a presentation that he did at some institute, and he talked about what they called the expensive tissue hypothesis. Okay. Yeah, that's what it is. Okay, so what they did is they measured the overall metabolic rate of all primates, and what they found was that the overall metabolic rate of all primates was almost identical, but the way the energy was used internally was a little bit different. And so our brain takes up a lot of energy, and our digestive system takes up a lot of energy. And so if our overall metabolic rate is identical from primate to primate, but our brains are a lot bigger, our guts are smaller, we don't have that huge large intestine, there's a trade-off, right? So it's like we got these bigger brains and a smaller digestive system, whereas most primates have smaller brains and larger digestive systems. And so their hypothesis was that is part of what contributed to our evolution and the expansion of our brain, is that our digestive system kind of shrank, but we had to start moving towards more nutrient-dense and calorically dense foods. And whereas primates can take a lot of nutrient-deplete food and convert it into something else, right? And so that exactly adds up when you look at their different resources, and we will link to that in the notes of this. So, so if we look at the human digestive system, like our upper GI is meant to be extremely acidic, and that acidity does a lot of different things. It disinfects and protects the stomach from pathogens and the rest of the body from pathogens, since that's our interface with the environment. But then also that strong acidity activates a protein digesting enzyme called pepsin. So our stomach, it seems like it's really geared towards digesting proteins and assimilating minerals to a large degree. So what else in the stomach realm? Digestive wise, I think that's about all small intestine, we already said, a lot of absorption. Large intestine, we do a little bit of fermentation, but not a whole lot of fermentation. I think the key to our digestive system is that we are geared for nutrient density, with maximum absorption and assimilation. We don't have this capacity to ferment like other primates do, and we do really good on cooked foods. Because do you understand why we do better on cooked foods than non-cooked foods?
No.
Okay, can you take
Explain
a guess?
that. I mean, no.
What does cooking do to a food? Like if I was going to eat a raw piece of meat versus a really well-cooked piece of meat. Maybe
maybe
not
like
burnt, but
it kills the bad bacteria or some negative nutrients, or makes it easier on the digestive system to eat?
Well, maybe all of those things.
Yeah.
So in some ways, cooking is going to be, it's going to open up some of the nutrients and make them more accessible and bioavailable. Okay. But in some ways, it could also degrade and denature some nutrients. And yes, it could maybe make it a little bit safer to consume.
Okay.
But cooking in general, cooking is something else that contributed to that whole process of evolution of our digestive system. And so there's a really cool book that I recently read called Catching Fire, and it was a summary of a bunch of anthropological studies. Okay. And what they did is they compiled all this information about trying to figure out, so the expensive tissue hypothesis implies that the reason that we got these larger brains and smaller guts is because we learned to eat meat and fat, all right? Okay. So as human beings, we became like these ultra scavengers that could make use of anything that was available. So there was no diet all over the world that worked for every human being, but what we did is we learned to adapt. And so, in that adaptation, we learned to maybe scavenge off some carcasses, and then our digestive system kind of changed to get to where it could assimilate those kind of nutrients. And because those nutrients are so much more dense and the calories are so much more dense in animal meats and fats, then our digestive systems kind of shrank, our brains started to get bigger, but at the same time, we also started to cultivate the use of fire. And so fire did a lot of things for us, but specifically when it comes to food, it makes it easier to digest and it breaks it down. So fire played a huge role in the evolution of our digestive systems and our brains as well.
You're blowing my mind right now.
Yeah, and we see that now when we match it up and we estimate, or we see just from archaeological studies, different dig sites, we see evidence of fire as far back as maybe 300,000 years plus. Most anthropologists would say humans became human back at the human genus, which is or the genus Homo, which was about 2.5 million years ago. But after that, up to 300,000 years ago, maybe longer, we've been messing with fire and cooking. And that's one of the big differentiators. So it's like not just the inclusion of animal meats and fats, but also the ability to cook, which allowed us to really assimilate a lot of nutrients and a lot of calories compared to our other ancestors or primates, which have to eat all day long and eat this nutrient deplete food in order to assimilate, or convert it into nutrients that they can use. So I think the summary of all that is, and this was my thought experiment, is like for 2 million years, we've never been on one diet. We are not adapted to any one particular thing. We are adapted to adaptability. That's what humans, that's what this whole digestive system and process is about. So,
I believe it.
Yeah.
So with all of that being said, and I guess we can kind of take it back to our values, talking about ancestral wisdom, and then we'll talk about modern science as well. But
yeah, so what was that 3-step process when we come up with our guidelines? You remember that?
It was ancestral wisdom.
We use ancestral wisdom to come up with some hypotheses and guidelines, and then
we use modern science.
And then we experiment on ourselves.
Yes, no, that's true.
It's the whole experience and experimentation piece of it, that comes into play. So if we look at ancestral wisdom, I mean, you could tell me probably a little bit about Dr. Price, right?
A little bit.
Because you read the Nourishing Traditions
yes.
book.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, so who is Dr. Price?
Oh, gosh, I can't tell. Oh, well, he went out and he did a bunch of studies. What community did he do the studies on? A bunch of them.
So there's like 14.
Okay.
So yeah.
And he studied their teeth, he studied their health, he also studied their diet, and said that their diet contributed to their great genetics, their teeth, their health.
Their teeth health and stuff like that. He was fascinated with the fact that like a lot of Americans had cavities and needed orthodontia.
Yep.
And then when he took his retirement money, traveled the world looking he's like, all right, Americans are so messed up. And this was back in the 1920s, 30s. Americans seemed to be like degenerating right before his eyes. He's like, I'm gonna go find some healthy populations and figure out what the heck it is that they do that makes them so freaking healthy. And then that's how the Weston A. Price Foundation came to be.
Love
a summary of all his stuff. So even he would say, so if we're talking about ancestral wisdom, Dr. Price would say, he called the people in these different populations the primitive people. And he'd say, we went to the primitive people to see what they did to be healthy. He would say there was no one diet that fit everyone all over the world. there's certain things that he determined had to be in place in order for someone to be extremely healthy. And one of those big things was that you had to get fat-soluble nutrients from animal sources. And those specifically are vitamin A, vitamin D, and vitamin K. And the animal versions of those are different from the plant-based or precursor versions of those in plants. And that's one of the big things that he noticed was different about how they ate and what they ate. He also noted that, you know, they all started with fresh 100% real food, but most of them did cook their food, you know, depending on what it was. So the cooking thing that came into play with Dr. Price, what he noticed was if a food was really soft and, you know, seemed to be easy to digest on its own, then they could eat that relatively raw. But the majority of meats and like really hard like tubers and starchy things, they had to be cooked in order to be eaten, because otherwise people just couldn't digest them. And then he even wrote in all of his literature, like he was really disappointed he didn't find a vegan culture that was really healthy. But he did find some vegan cultures, but they weren't as healthy as the people that ate meat and animal fats. And sometimes I wish, man, because I was vegan for 2 years, sometimes I wish, because it seems like such a pretty nice story to say, you know, let's just eat plants and not harm anything. But like this whole thing that we're on in this planet, like everything is everything, and it's circular, and life feeds on life. And the question is, what are we designed to eat? What is going to make us feel the best? And that's what we're focused on, is what are the things that are going to make us feel most amazing, you know? So so his summary, Dr. Price's summary, if we're talking about ancestral wisdom of the food, even though he said there's no diet that fit everyone perfectly, what he did notice was that everyone ate local meats. Most populations consume local dairy straight from the animal, and then local produce was eaten dependent on what was in season and what was available. And of course, you know, the closer you were to the polar ice caps, the less vegetation there was. So there's this whole range of, you know, populations that ate all kinds of different things. Coastal populations, inland populations, northern populations. But the big consistencies were they all ate local meats, and they all ate local dairy if it was available, and they all ate whatever produce was available. And then most of that stuff was cooked. So
I love that. I love that.
So, and then if we look at, you know, the fossil record, we see dig sites that show stone tools, animal carcasses, evidence of plant matter. If we look at traditional human populations and even modern hunter-gatherer populations, there's like over close to 250 tribes that have been studied and documented, where scientists would go out and anthropologists would weigh their food and just document what they did when they went out and when they came back. And they would analyze their foods with labs, and they determined like all these populations that were extremely healthy consumed about 50 to 65% of their calories from animal foods and the rest of it from plant foods. And these are populations that have no signs of chronic degenerative disease or any of the issues that we mess with today. So,
gosh, you would just wish people would model that.
I know,
but that's
right?
what we're trying to do here. So
Yeah,
I love
absolutely.
that. I love that. So going along with ancestral wisdom, let's switch over to modern science. So what does modern science and their methodology say about real food?
All right, so what are some of the modern methodologies that we see popular that seem to work?
I mean, keto, paleo.
Keto,
the lovely word keto.
I'll tell you what, it is so popular. Like just about every new client that I have come in here
Is this keto?
has tried keto. Or thinks they're doing keto.
Yeah,
Like,
I always get asked, hey, how's that keto thing going? And I'm like, man.
we are the SHT.
Yeah, this is not keto. But
and it's really interesting with the keto thing. Like, what I like about keto is it's gotten people to focus on real food,
which is wonderful.
Yeah. So, but most people that say they're keto, they're not keto.
No.
Because keto is no joke.
No,
keto
it's not.
is like a lot of fat, a little bit of protein, and no carbs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Counting.
Yeah. But keto, what else? What else do we see that's really popular? Paleo, we see.
Good.
Yep.
Would I say Atkins is popular? Not really.
Yeah, it is kind of. You know, like keto's it's like the, I don't know, like the stepchild or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, protein and fat. I mean, Dr. Atkins was one of the first people to give some validity to ketosis. I mean, that's kind of what the program initially started as, I think. So I'd say vegan is really popular. We see a lot of great results with that. You know, a lot of people transition from what they're doing to a plant-based protocol, and they see a lot of good results. Yeah. We see a few people out there that are doing Weston A. Price. So you ask the question, like, what does modern science and modern methodology say? Well, we see a lot of great results with vegan and plant-based, low-carb, ketogenic, paleo, primal, Weston A. Price. You know, all those seem to have a lot of great results in the scientific literature. And now we're starting to see like a lot of controlled studies and observation studies that support like these different methodologies. But I say this now, like in a lot of our programs, what I've realized is, I think we said this maybe in our first or second podcast when we said that we are looking for what's optimal.
Yes.
Not just what's going to be better than what we were doing before.
Agreed. Yeah, and we did say that. Yep, you're right.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So, and what I would say is sometimes some of these popular methodologies, it's not the methodology itself that is like giving us the results. It's the fact that it's something that moved us away from doing something completely wrong into doing something more real foodish or better. And maybe there's a better way, and we would say that our way is a little bit better of a way,
I mean, think about it from a non-biased standpoint. We're an SHT, we're a little biased. But when I went vegan, maybe when you went vegan, of course we were doing something better. We were staying away from processed food.
What was your experience like when you did that?
I lost 20 pounds in like a good 6 months. It dropped off like that.
My first 6 months was the best.
Yes.
Like I was like, see, I told
you.
It
worked.
I felt so good. Yeah.
Yeah, but then I couldn't keep up with it because I found loopholes. I was the person that was like what? Oh, if you read the back of an Oreo packet.
Oh, it's vegan?
Yes. Yeah. There's no dairy in it. Can you believe that? It's that process.
Wow.
There's no dairy in it.
Wow.
But silly things like that. But that's where I went downhill. But it worked very well. Why? Because I was doing something better than what I was originally doing. Yeah. So for sure.
Yeah. And I would say that's another thing with some of these popular methodologies is that we're starting to see them getting tainted with, it's vegan, but it's not optimal because it's still kind of processed. And then there's paleo protein powders and shakes and bars. And so that's kind of moving away from what we would say is optimal. So, but I think what we're trying to say here, what we both agree on is like if I'm someone that's out there just like suffering, doing the standard American diet, eating processed food, and I go to plant-based or paleo or keto or what I think is keto, and it's better than what I was doing before, I'm going to see some great things shift. But at this point, what we want is what is optimal?
Yes.
What is the best thing? And what is livable and sustainable and enjoyable for a lifetime? And that's kind of what we feel like our way of doing things is. So, we encompass a lot of different things. So, so our way of eating, we focus on, I just like to think of us as real foodies. And we just have some basic rules around it, Yep.
So what would you, break down what a real foodie equates to?
Well, 100% fresh real food all the time, as much as you can get access to it. And we have access to a lot of approved things made with the right ingredients. And I think that doesn't serve most of our people. I think I don't know if did you go through the learning curve where like when you first came into it, you had the Strauss ice cream in the fridge?
No, I can tell you a story, honestly.
Yeah.
So my favorite food on this entire planet before I joined this SHT community, pancakes. Okay, breakfast, lunch, dinner, I could eat pancakes any day long. 12 a.m., pancakes.
What were they made with?
Oh, just normal cruddy pancakes.
Oh, okay, before this.
But but I got into this community and I was like, okay, I'm a 100% or nothing kind of a girl. So I was like, I'm 100% and I will not touch it. And then when somebody introduced to me this paleo brand of pancakes and I looked at the ingredients and I said, you know what? They all check off. Ate a couple of them. I felt like I had a rock in my stomach.
Oh, man.
It would not digest the approved flour or whatever.
Yeah.
So you can get into this and you can find, an approved ingredient or product and you can still see that it's not going to work for you.
Yeah. And I think you're starting to move away from what's, I would say, kind of foundational and pure about what we're doing, which is we want to focus on foods that are living and vital and fresh, and we mentioned cooking before, so that doesn't mean that we're not going to cook food.
No.
But what that means is we want to start with something that's like has some kind of vitality and aliveness to it, because it's like I like to think of it as like I want to jive with the thing that I'm consuming because jives with jive, or something like that. Something along those lines,
Eat what's living, you'll be alive.
Yeah.
Kind of a
like,
thing. I get
versus
it.
like shelf-stable, protected, chemical preservative type stuff. So I would say we're real foodies. We want to focus on foods that have a life force and a vitality about them.
Yes.
When we eat real food compared to doing the wrong thing, we automatically get all the nutrients that we need. And then we get this thing that I like to call nutrient synergy and food synergy. So back in my bodybuilding, weightlifting days, I was just living off of bars and protein powders and shakes and stuff, So, and the reason for that was like you read the label and it's a science-based freaking combination of all these different amino acids and minerals and of course their marketing materials telling you that it's like this perfect blend of ratios of all these different things. But what we've learned being real foodies is that science cannot outsmart Mother Nature and what we have adapted to eating over the course of 2 million years or 300,000 years or however you want to look at that. So when I eat a piece of meat or when I eat an apple or something, it's not just that I'm getting amino acids and fatty acids and minerals and enzymes and cofactors, and I'm getting life force, and I'm getting an interaction of all those things together that we're never going to fully understand and we will never be able to replicate. And that's why it is so important to be a real foodie versus like going for all these different approved options. Yeah,
your body's going to recognize what it's made to eat. Not something out of a lab.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It jives with jive.
No, I agree. So we are touching base on like our definition of food. So give it to us. What's our definition of food?
Okay, so our first food group, because we're focused on nutrients. Well, okay, our focus when we eat real food, and we'll talk more about this. I think at our next episode, we'll talk about like how to structure daily eating and balance and self-sufficiency and stuff. But our focus when we eat real food, we have two main focuses. The first one is giving the body the nutrients that it needs to contribute to building this beautiful body, and then also all the different functions that happen inside the body. Okay, so nutrients. What's the difference between nutrients and calories? Because most people come in here and they're like worried about calories, right?
So much. The nutrients is what you need for your body to build itself.
Yes.
When you go to the doctor and they said, "Oh, you're vitamin deficient," they're not going to go eat some more calories. Well, hopefully they'll tell you to eat the right food,
right,
in order to maintain that and build those vitamins up. But it's nutrients. It's what your body needs to be self-sufficient.
Okay, so then what is that compared to calories? What's the definition of calories? Or not definition. What's the difference, layman's terms, between nutrients and calories? Because if I'm eating for nutrients, what is the difference? I hate
calories so much, I don't even know the definition.
Okay, so calories is going to be a unit of, or a measure of energy. Yeah. So, yeah, you knew that.
Yeah.
So
I just hate them.
Yeah, I do too. I hate the term. So if I assess a food based on nutrients, then I'm assessing what my body can do with all that stuff inside the food, right? If I'm assessing a food based on calories, then I'm assessing how much energy I can get out of that food. But here's the thing, just like, I was telling this to someone that was in here earlier today. If I go to a construction site and I have a big pile of lumber, I can do a couple of different things with it. I can build a house with it, which would be the same thing as using the nutrients to contribute to building this body and all the functions, right? Or I can burn it. And same thing with food. My body could use, like if I eat a piece of steak, my body could use that for energy. But if it has all these different things that my body can use, then those things are getting used for all these different purposes, and calorie almost becomes irrelevant. Because when I start to eat foods for nutrients, then it is possible to overeat the right foods, but it's almost impossible simply because my body starts to give auto-satiation and appetite regulating signals when I eat really nutrient-dense foods. And I was telling my friend this morning, so if I try to, it is possible to overeat the right things.
For sure.
But if I try to eat a big pile of meat this big, like just wouldn't happen. Right?
No.
I mean, I could eat, I don't know how much I could eat, maybe 1.5 pounds or something like that, right? And then I'd be full and I couldn't do anything. Now, how much pasta and rice can you eat?
Oh boy.
You can put a lot of that away, and bread, right?
4 boxes maybe?
Yes, exactly. So it's like the more nutrient dense, the more you're giving your body what it needs, the more calorie becomes irrelevant, because the body starts to tell you, hey, I got it, I'm getting what I need, I feel really good, I'm going to make use of all this stuff that you're giving me. So anyway, to bring it back, our focus when we eat food is to give the body the nutrients that it needs to build and to contribute to all the functions. And then our second focus when we eat food is to train the body how to be self-sufficient, how to be self-reliant, how to be free, void of external inputs, and also how to be metabolically flexible and fat burning. Okay, so we're focused on those two different things. So based on those two focuses, animal meats are going to be our number one food group, because animal meats, like I said in the beginning, if I eat something that resembles my body, I give my body what I need to make my body. And now, based on what we talked about before, because of the way that the human digestive system has evolved, I can actually assimilate these nutrients really well, and it actually does a little bit better if I cook them. So remind me to talk about cooking right at the end if I don't remember that.
I got you.
So animal meats by far give the body the most nutrient bang for buck. And in the animal meat realm, we would always say, and this is completely counter-conventional wisdom, but now that we understand what we're looking for here, we want fatty cuts, bone in, and skin on, because that's going to give me more stuff. I can eat a chicken breast, it's fine. Chicken breast resembles more of muscle meat than anything else, right? But if I eat a chicken drumstick, or if I do a crock pot chicken, or if I eat a rotisserie chicken and I eat the skin and I eat a little bit of the cartilage, well, then I'm giving my body skin to make my skin. I'm giving my body cartilage to make my own cartilage. I mean, how many of us have heard the benefits of collagen and are supplementing with collagen powder?
I have never had, ladies, I have never had stronger hair, nails, and skin.
I know.
Just saying.
Right? And your hair was already beautiful.
Thank you. But yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, most people in this world that we know are taking collagen supplements, but what is the most natural place to get collagen? It's skin.
Skin.
Yeah. So we want to think when we eat animal meats in terms of eating an entire animal nose to tail. We want to think in terms of eating packages. We want fatty cuts, bone in, skin on. I'm getting a lot more stuff when I eat that. Can you eat a chicken breast? Yes. Can you eat tuna fish? Sure. But to me, it stinks of low-fat thinking, and I refuse to buy a can of tuna fish for the rest of my life, and I will never buy a chicken breast either, you know. But I would gladly eat a drumstick or a wing or something like that.
Best part.
Yep.
Just saying.
Damn, there's something else I was thinking along those lines. But yeah, so some people would be concerned about, well, isn't that a lot of calories? Well, we're in a different world now.
Very different.
Very different world. So our world is about nutrients and auto-satiation and auto-appetite regulating. And if I eat these foods that seem to have more calories, it doesn't matter because they also have more nutrients. And that contributes to building this body, all the functions and auto-appetite and satiation. So,
Did you want to touch base on the cooking thing?
Well, I would say meats are going to be better cooked for the most part. And I know a lot of us love rare, medium rare steaks and things like that, and that's perfectly fine. But just understand, like if you watch chimpanzees chew on a piece of meat when they kill one of these monkeys that they like, I mean, they're chewing for hours because raw meat and raw muscle meat is extremely tough and it takes a lot of chewing, right? So that's one of the things that helped us evolve our digestive system. So I think cooking meats is going to be extremely beneficial. You know, cooking everything else is kind of optional. We can touch on each one as we go through it. So our definition of real food, our top fats are going to be real butter, right? Because real butter comes from a cow, or you know, what else? Do we get goat butter?
There's goat cheese.
There's goat cheese. I wonder if there's goat butter.
There might be. We might do some more research.
Yeah, I've never seen goat butter. Yeah.
Okay.
So our top fats are going to be real butter. Butter has a lot of beneficial fat-soluble nutrients. Butter also is a source of fat-based energy. And if our goal is training our body how to use fat for fuel, then eating fat-based energy at our main meals is going to be great. Butter has CLA, you know, some other nutrients that are extremely beneficial and synergistic with the foods that we cook it in. And then we also love coconut oil, olive oil, avocados, animal meats and fats are going to be great if you can get your hands on lard and tallow and stuff like that. So
perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Vegetables, obviously we love vegetables.
Yes.
So I would say the more hearty the vegetable, maybe the more beneficial it would be to cook it.
Okay.
You know, and that's not an absolute rule. But we mentioned before, cooking is it's gonna pre-digest foods to a degree.
Yes.
So if I have a really hearty vegetable, let's say like broccoli, floret or something, it's going to be really hard for the body to digest that. So it's not that there's not going to be some benefits that come from it, but it is going to go through my system partially undigested. But if I can lightly steam it or cook it in some butter or something, then it's going to make it way easier to digest. And I would say looking at a food, just like maybe assess it based on how tough it is, and that would maybe give you a gauge about how much to cook it or how little to cook it or whether not to cook it.
Okay.
You know, in that vegetable realm, plant matter realm, greens we love.
Yep.
So I usually do like a handful of greens most evenings, like arugula, kale, spinach, maybe some mixed greens, and those are really soft.
Yeah.
And so I usually eat those raw with a little bit of salad dressing or something.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
You say kind of stay away from romaine. I mean, it's all right if you start with it, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So romaine in the plant matter realm would be the same as chicken breast in the meat realm.
Okay.
Kind of nutrient deplete, fine, it's acceptable, but not anywhere near as nutrient dense as some of the powerhouses like spinach and kale and arugula and the nutrient dense vegetables. So the majority of our meals are going to be kind of focused on those three things.
Yes.
Animal meats, fatty cuts, bone in, skin on, ideally, animal nose to tail type stuff. I don't think we mentioned the animal meat realm. That includes eggs and shellfish, seafood, you know, and then also organ meats.
Yes.
You know, so the majority of our meals are going to be, you know, animal meats cooked in some healthy fat, and then a little bit of vegetables, a little bit of greens.
Awesome.
You know, that's the formula for success. You know?
Love that.
Yep.
Love that.
And then we have our sources of carbohydrates. So what are our main sources of carbohydrates?
Potatoes.
What's that category that we would throw potatoes into?
Starches. Safe
starches. Yeah, there we go. Safe starches. Now, do you know where we got that concept from by any chance?
No.
All right, so this has got to be on your reading list. We'll put reference to it in the notes.
Okay.
So we got the concept of safe starches from Paul Jaminet, which is the Perfect Health Diet.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So So our carbohydrates is what we mean by carbohydrates is the dominant sources of starches and sugar.
Okay.
So safe starches are going to be sweet potatoes and yams, white rice versus brown rice.
Yep.
We talk a little bit more about that later. White rice, you know, we prefer simply because it's clean. It doesn't have the shell. It's void of some anti-nutrients. And then also we like ancestral tubers like taro and cassava. I love plantain. That's my number one safe starch. And then some people are going to do okay on potatoes, even though they're nightshades. Some people have issues with it as well. So,
awesome.
safe starches is one of our carbohydrates. What's our other main source of carbohydrates?
Fruits.
Yep, fruits, fresh fruits.
Yep.
So, in the fruit realm, do we have any rules?
I mean, not really. We love the nutrient dense ones like the berries.
Yep. Absolutely.
We as a community usually stick to berries, but you can go into any realm of the fruits as long as it's not overprocessed or like sprayed with pesticides. But yeah, fruits are pretty good.
Being aware of that kind of stuff. So, that's our main carbohydrate sources, and to us, carbs are the things that have dominant starches and sugars. So we got fruit, we have safe starches, and then we love full-fat dairy if people tolerate it. You know, and we understand a lot of people don't necessarily tolerate dairy, but dairy is something that I feel like is making a really big comeback because we see all over the planet there's lactase persistency. So we have started to adapt to digesting dairy products a little bit better, and it depends on where your ancestry comes from as far as whether you might do better on that or not. So in the dairy realm, we're talking about cheeses of all kinds. We love full-fat plain and Greek yogurts, and then we love the creams like heavy cream, cream cheese, sour cream, and things like that. So,
that's gonna help a lot of people too because they love their cheeses.
I know, right? So, and you think about what it is, you know, common sense definition of what we're talking about with all this stuff. What is real food? Real food is not real food, you know. So it's not the processed food, right? So I can easily see meats and vegetables and starches and fruits and full-fat dairy because I know exactly where that comes from. I can see that being real food, you know. So I think it's a pretty common sense definition. We may want to throw in some things in there over time as veterans. You'll hear us talk about some crazy stuff like bugs and organ meats and hey, we got a visitor right here. Check him out.
Oh, hi. Hello.
What's up, John Lombard?
Hi, John Lombard.
And then fermented foods and things like that would be great, you know, like kombucha and sauerkraut and kimchi. But that would be our main definition of real food is those food groups. And then we always talk about simplicity and elegance, you know, and making this work in a modern lifestyle. So based on our definition of food and what's in and what's out, we have access to condiments, mustards, ketchups, salad dressings. We can do a little bit of alcohol in moderation, which everybody's usually really excited about. How do you feel about alcohol? You don't drink alcohol that much, do you?
No, not much. I mean, in college for sure for like 2 years, but I never have been.
Yeah, you're a good little. You're a balance to our crew when we're out and about, you know. So
I'm like, no, I'll take a water.
But I think a drink a night is perfectly fine. You know, if you're doing 2 drinks a night, borderline 3 or more, like you're probably doing too much and not doing your body that much good.
For sure.
Hard shelled nuts we're fine with. So you know, macadamia nuts, almonds, pecans, walnuts, pistachios, all those types of things. We're also okay with properly prepared legumes. So this is an area that we differ from the paleo movement a little bit, but we align more with the Weston A. Price Foundation. We just want to make sure that if we consume legumes, and what we mean by legumes, it's beans and lentils, you know, like black beans, pinto beans, and all those types of things. We want to make sure that we're preparing them properly, soaking them overnight, ideally with an acidic medium, and we have some recipes and stuff associated with that. So, and then I think our top sweetener is going to be raw honey, ideally local honey. Honey is an ancestral superfood. I've done a couple of posts on that. So. Other sweeteners might be optimal or acceptable would be dark maple syrup and maybe some stevia as a non-nutritive sweetener. And then we can experiment with xylitol and erythritol, but I think a lot of people have digestive issues around that.
Yeah,
so
your body will recognize things like that. you know.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, it goes through the
for
digestive system, and it makes it down to the small intestine, large intestine, undigested, and so some microorganisms are going to feed on it and ferment it, and that's what's going to cause the bloating and the gas and stuff associated with it.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So hydration. What about hydration? Hydration is really important to us. Do you know anything about like what kind of water we're looking for?
We're looking for mineralized water. So what would you say we put in there to make it mineralized
Well,
water?
if we're going to mineralize our water, we'd say a pinch of salt, and then maybe a little bit of concentrates.
best.
Unrefined salt. Yeah, not any kind of salt. Unrefined salt, and then maybe a little bit of concentrates, which is a trace mineral product. You know, they have a couple different versions. But, you know, we want to make sure we're drinking clean water. So ideally, I think we're looking for reverse osmosis, carbon filtrated, purified drinking water, or maybe you got one of those little systems in your home that you know, that you have the stuff up under the sink and it gives you the reverse osmosis there on the spot. So what about if people are used to sodas and stuff? Do we have any alternatives to that?
I mean, we do.
What?
We do. It's carbonated water, some type
Love
of sparkling
carbonated water. Where's my Gerald Steiner?
He's going in the fridge, guys.
I love my Gerald Steiner.
Chug, 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 chug. It's hard to chug carbonated water.
Pellegrino, Gerald Steiner, top sparkling waters. What else? Like if someone's got like they missed the soda thing, do we have any options?
Some stevias are good. I've had a few
Zevias.
Zevias. Not stevias. That's the sweetener.
Yeah,
Zevia.
it's what they use.
Yes.
Yeah, Zevia.
Yep.
Zevia's great. They have a million different flavors. Some of them have caffeine, some of them don't.
Yep.
I don't really like them that much, but there's a lot of people that do. Have you tasted them before?
Yeah, I prefer LaCroix.
Yeah. So there's another one. LaCroix is great too.
Yeah.
LaCroix is a good one. It's kind of a flavored water, but it doesn't have the sweet taste to it. So, and then how do we feel about coffee and tea and all that stuff?
Love it.
Yes.
Love it,
absolutely.
love it.
Absolutely.
It is my reward from my workout every day.
Absolutely. Yeah. So coffees and teas, you know, a lot of beneficial components, you know, polyphenols. Coffee just keeps showing up more and more in mainstream news and in the literature about all the different health benefits. I think caffeine can be a problem for some people if you're drinking it too much all day long, but it's very bio-individual. So we love coffees and teas. And since we love heavy cream, you know, that would be our top additive, creamer for coffees and teas and things like that, heavy cream in your coffee. So, I think that's covering just about everything. I think the only thing that we're kind of missing is how do we tie all that together? You know, how do we structure our meals? What does that look like? How do we time things in the day? And I think that's something good to cover at the next episode.
I completely agree.
Cool. So summary, all that stuff. So we talked about, what did we talk about in the beginning? We talked about
ancestral wisdom.
Yep. Digestive system, what we're geared for, you know, like trying to think, you know, what is it that we're supposed to eat? It's whatever we're designed to eat. And so we went through a little bit of that, our digestive system, talked about ancestral wisdom, Dr. Price, archaeology, a little bit of anthropology and the modern hunter-gatherer populations, and all that stuff kind of brings a consistent message, which is basically animal meats, some healthy fats, some nutrient-dense vegetables, depending on what's available. And then if we look at some of the modern methodologies like the paleo, primal, Weston A. Price, keto, vegan, those are all real foodish based methodologies. And we all agree on the freshness and the real food part of it, but we feel like this SHT way is a little bit more livable over the long term because we give ourselves access to a lot of different things. The question is, within those lots of different things, what is going to make us feel the best? And that's kind of what we help people do when they work with us, is facilitate those experiments. So,
and keep coming to us, keep working with us, and we'll get to that optimal state.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. Cool.
All right.
Another one in the books. We got anything else to cover? I don't think so.
No, we will talk to you guys next time.
All right.
Bye. High five.
Oh.
Yeah.